Joe O'Rourke, aka Bunch U, is a co-founder of dGen Network, which is an NFT and crypto media platform, and the co-founder of Form3, which is the world's first Web3 powered universal loyalty platform for consumers and brands. Today, I'm here, and we're gonna hear all about Joe's journey and what it took to start up his businesses, as well as learn a little bit about those businesses. Welcome back to How About That Crypto, and thank you for joining us, Joe. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for having me. Super excited to chat here. This has been on the books for a while, so I'm glad the day is here.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So why don't we just jump in for I think your story, just looking at your LinkedIn, looked kind of interesting. And tell us a little bit about how you got into crypto, Web3, and what your background is.
Yeah, so I have been in the crypto space since 2017. I originally got in, I think May of 2017 was my first ever Bitcoin buy on Coinbase. I looked at it the other day because I had my like 5-year anniversary when May came around, and I was like, when did I get in? And so my first Bitcoin buy was at like $1,560 ish,
Wow.
which is
Nice.
crazy. And I got into the space because I was a super avid like sports bettor and things like that. And at the time, it wasn't as regulated as it is now. So you had to go play on like offshore sports books and all of that. And that was really one of the only ways to get money on, was to deposit on Bitcoin. And so that brought me to Coinbase to learn. And then after that, I had to kind of learn what the heck I was dealing with, right? So at the time on Coinbase, there was Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin. That was it. And so went down the rabbit hole pretty quickly there and never came out. So now it's funny, I've been doing my next endeavor after that was doing what you're doing. I started creating content. So started a podcast, a crypto podcast called Wrecked Podcast in 2018 with a partner of mine. And we've been doing that forever. And then that led us into kind of our NFT podcast in 2021, which led to, us creating dGen Network and all of that. So that was my original journey, was 2017. I've been obsessed with everything in the space pretty much since then. I found on Friday, which this is crazy to me. On Friday, I found a one-sheeter proposal for an NFT art marketplace that I wrote in 2018, which was like predated OpenSea and stuff. I found the email I sent, I found the document and everything. I sent it to my business partner. I was like, man, I think you'd find this interesting. And so that just shows how long I've been interested in the space. And what I do now is mostly on the NFT side, aside from the content creation, but like it just goes to show how fascinated I was even in 2018, before this stuff even blew up to where it is now.
Nice. And when I was looking at your LinkedIn, I noticed that you were not in computer science field. So you just it was just like a side thing that you got really excited about and you just learned more and more.
Yeah, exactly. So when I first got into the space, what really intrigued me was just the kind of fundamental thesis and ethos behind Bitcoin, right? And so I think I took the journey that most people, when they discover crypto, take, which is like, you learn about Bitcoin, you become a Bitcoin maxi, you're thinking about sound money and all of these things, and then you explore into Ethereum and the idea of smart contracts and decentralized applications and things like that, and you're like, oh man, there's this whole other world out there. And so then you go really deep down the rabbit hole. And but I was not a tech person ever prior, right? Like I've never written a line of code. I don't know how to do that. But what I do love is and that really hooked me, was just the ethos behind decentralization in terms of like what it means for the things that we use every day, whether that is money, whether that is a open system blockchain that people can build upon and create these interoperable systems, right? Like when you think about kind of Web 1 versus Web 3 and where we are now, and just how, like, what the future looks like if systems are open, and what that means for you, a user, or a just a normal citizen in an open system. And it's not this big grandiose thing. It's simple. You won't even realize you're using it once it like really takes hold. But the benefits of it to you as a user will be, I think, magnitudes greater than what the internet looks like now. And that's kind of, what's brought me to my initial interest in this stuff and where I am today.
That's awesome. So speaking of where you are today, why don't you tell us a little bit about, like, so you have these two companies, are these your two main squeezes, the dGen network and Forum 3?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I went full time into this stuff about just over a year ago. So last July is when I finally was able to take the leap and go full time. My story is pretty crazy, actually. You wouldn't have found this on LinkedIn, but you might have on my Twitter, where I kind of talked about it's my pinned tweet of my journey on how I went full time into the space. And so, as I mentioned, I've been into the space since 2017. It's always been kind of a side hustle for me, both from the content creation standpoint and everything like that. And I really wanted it to be a full-time thing, right? And so but my background was always sales and marketing and things like that, where I didn't quite know how to bridge that skill into crypto, right? Like at the time, if you were full-time crypto, you were either a programmer, you were a blockchain engineer, you were a smart contract developer, or you were like a full-time trader, right? And I wasn't any of those things. So I didn't quite know or think that it was ever possible for me to do as a full-time gig, right? And then, when COVID hit, it was interesting. I feel like this was an epiphany that many people had during COVID, when they were stuck in their house and not maybe doing their full-time jobs in the same way that they had been in the past, where it's like, I've always been, just being a salesperson, very entrepreneurial. So I started all these different side hustles, and it was interesting. Once I got the taste of like making some money on my own, right? Not from my job, just things that I've either created or businesses that I've started. And like, I got this itch and I never wanted to go back, right? So I really went headfirst into the crypto stuff and tried to build myself a lot of different income streams. And so I finally got to a place in last summer where I felt like, okay, it might be time for me to be able to take the leap. Where what I was trying to do was supplement my full-time income so I could actually make a change when the time came. And so a friend of mine now, I didn't know him at the time, but I got really into the NFT space. I was really into play to earn gaming. I thought that was a really interesting space. I liked the mechanics, the tokenomics. It was fascinating to me. And so I was tweeting about it a lot and kind of learning in public, if you will. And this guy reached out to me and he said, "Hey, I'm having a crypto retreat." And he called it a retreat, but hindsight, it was a party, right? And so he's like, "Hey, I'm having this crypto retreat / party. Here are all the people that are coming. We want to talk about like play to earn gaming and NFTs. Would you be interested in coming and like hanging out and being our guy to teach us about that?" And I was like, "Yeah, this sounds really great." I was like, "Tell me the weekend, I'll be there." And he goes, "Oh, it's next Tuesday to Thursday." And I'm like, son of a gun. I'm like, "Oh my God, you gotta be kidding me." I'm like, "Don't you guys work?" He's like, "This is work, And I'm like, "Okay." Well, at the time I was working for a medical company, and I sold basically wound care and adult diapers into nursing homes. And I was supposed to be in Pittsburgh at that when the party was. And I was like, you know what? This is the opportunity I've been waiting for. I don't think I'll ever get the chance again if I say no. So I quit my job that Friday before. And I quit my job to go to this party. And at the party, I met my now co-founder, business partner of Forum 3. And we talked, for 10 hours that day. We only met for that one day, 10 hours. The next week, we were doing business together and started Forum 3, and the rest is history. So that was my intro into full time. I took the risk and it paid off. I don't recommend anybody out there quitting their job to go to a party, as fun as that might sound. I'm a little crazy. I had a, stay-at-home wife and a 6-month-old and a new house. And,
Oh, wow.
So it was quite the risk and it paid off. But, I'd always wanted to do this. I was presented with an opportunity that I thought was worth it, and turned out it was. And my whole life has changed in the last 18 months since then. So, but that's how I came into doing this stuff full time. And dGen Network was something that we started building prior to that. That's been around since last May. And that's been really fun to build as well. Just because as you know, doing it yourself, creating content and educational material and just spreading the kind of word on all this stuff that we're so passionate about is really fun. And so to be able to do that and connect with the community on the dGen Network side is really cool. And then Forum 3 is kind of this whole different beast that we do bunch of different stuff there. But that's how I went full time. I quit my job selling adult diapers to go to a party. And at that party, Ja Rule was there, which was really interesting.
Okay, nice.
And he grilled us some burgers, and I was like, where am I? What is happening right now? And so that's my story.
I love that. So you said dGen Network, you started working on first. So tell us about dGen Network. Like, tell us about what your vision is / was, and what type of stuff that you've gone through to build it up, and like where you're at, kind of like a little overview there.
So dGen is interesting in the sense that when I started doing podcasting back in 2018, another kind of random serendipitous meeting, right? So I had gone on my first podcast appearance, and I had gotten like the bug, right? I was like, oh, I want to do this. And I was scrolling Twitter one day, and somebody had tweeted, they're like, man, I want to see a podcast in which people don't talk about their wins. I want to hear people talk about their losses. Like, I'm out here getting wrecked in the streets. Like, I want to hear people's like horror stories. So I replied to the guy, and I was like, I would be totally cool down to make this podcast with you. And the next week we had recorded our first episode, and that was in 2018. We still do podcasts together, my co-host Chamber on the Mint Condition and Rec podcast. But what's funny about that is he lives in Canada. We've known each other for almost 5 years now. We've never met in real life.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So
cool.
that's kind of the craziness of this space too, being all, internet based, global, everything. Right. So, but he and I had started and tried to start like a network like this in like 2019, 2020 around just more like crypto content. Right. And it didn't work out. I think we were a little too early for it really to take hold. But we'd always had this idea of really creating this big kind of aggregator of content. And you scroll through Twitter and you see all these great threads, and which could be articles. You see all these independent content creators doing spaces, or just talking on spaces, or recording podcasts that feels like, I'm sure this feeling where you're starting a podcast and it feels like you're just screaming into the ether, right? Where
Yeah.
you're trying to build an audience is hard, right? So
Yeah.
the idea we had was, okay, let's build this network out, strength in numbers, right? So we would take all these small guys like ourselves that were out creating content and build this big network effect. And that's what we tried to do the first time. Again, I think we were a little too early, but last year, when the NFT space started going off, and right around the time that Bored Apes minted, so this was end of May, I was in all these Discord groups. I had minted a couple apes myself, and we were in these Discord groups like where all these people who minted apes were hanging out. And at the time, if you are not into the NFT space or you're not familiar with Bored Apes, what was like, this was the first time that in the NFT space, at least, where this like rabid community formed and was all about like building things with their IP that they had gotten from this project, right? So we were in this chat and I had met this guy. His name is Steve. His on Twitter, he's at NFT Bark. He's a super smart dude. And he and I connected and we were like, yeah, let's start a business around our IP and all this stuff. And we had this grand idea that we were going to do like merch, which is like the least interesting thing that you could possibly do. And so we had a couple meetings and we realized, hey, neither of us know what the hell we're doing. Let's go lean into our strengths. So he was a career marketer. He was a marketing executive at Progressive and Nestle and stuff. And so he's like, hey, look, I listened to your podcast. I think you guys have something special there. What if we tried to build something around this network idea again? And that was, so we circled back to that. And so myself, my co-host, and Steve really created dGen Network and brought in a couple, other smart people trying to do the same thing. And that's how it was born. And we really created it with this ethos that we were going to take and aggregate all these great small content creators, give them a platform that we could go kind of be the mouthpiece for, help them jumpstart their content, and really start to build something big. And it's taken a long time, but we're really getting it off the ground. We have a token gated community now that we just minted last week of,
Nice.
about 1,000 folks that are kind of, your 1,000 true fans. And we have 8 or 9 different shows on the network now. We have the website with content that comes out every day for for articles. We have a 20,000 person newsletter now. And so like, it's really starting to take hold. And I think, where the space is, it's only going to get bigger and bigger as more people learn about crypto and NFTs and start dipping their feet in the water. As it gets easier to use, people will be looking for information, right? And they'll come to people like yourself or people like dGen Network to find that. And, so if you're out there and you've ever wanted to create some content, or you are creating content, but you do feel like you're screaming out into the ether, just keep at it is what I would say. I think people are coming. I think we're seeing it more now than ever with, brands taking notice, institutions taking notice, and even the government taking regulatory notice. That's all bullish for us as a group that are interested in this stuff, right? And the more validity it takes in that mainstream, the better it is for us. And so that's dGen Network. That's where we started, where we are now. And it feels really cool to have built I think the best part is building the community around it as well, which, we have this Discord group that is 24/7 talking about crypto, market, philosophy, all this stuff that's just fun, right? And it doesn't feel like work doing that. And so, yeah, that's dGen Network.
Okay, cool. So let me just kind of make sure I understand something. So the dGen network is you onboard creators, or do you have your own like creators?
Both. So all the creators that we have now have been kind of onboarded from us either reaching out based on us liking their content and kind of asking if they want a place to maybe put it out there more broadly, or actually one of our great shows, it's called the NFT Night Shift. They just had their 50th episode. They record like 2-3 times a week. So they've done this in a very short span, but they actually started and met through the Discord community, and we're like, hey,
Okay.
let's do a show together. And so we gave them that platform, and they've crushed it. It's been an awesome time seeing them go to 50 episodes in like 3 months, which is really cool. And I mean,
Nice.
you know how hard it is to do consistent content, right? Like
Yeah.
50
Yeah.
episodes in that small amount of time is no joke. So shout out to those guys. But so it's a little of both, right? Like, and now we're kind of getting a little more well known in kind of the NFT space. So people that are starting are coming to us, and things like that. So it goes both ways for sure.
Gotcha. And would you say that it's primarily focused on NFTs, or is there a balance with like crypto in general?
Yeah, so we have both. Definitely. So like I would say the podcasts for the most part are more NFT and Web3 philosophy type of shows. And then some of them are very dGen NFT trading, flipping types of shows. My show, it's called The Mint Condition. It is a kind of this big overarching, we interview all kinds of people from the space. We do what we ended up doing was taking our Wrecked podcast show, which was all crypto, and kind of merging the two together. But we talk a lot of crypto as well. What we actually found, which was interesting, was like this whole community formed around an NFT crowd, right? But then what you realize was the NFT crowd that came into the space last year with like NBA Top Shot, they didn't have a crypto background, right? Their first foray into the space was Top Shot. So as they kind of got more interested in the space and graduated into doing things on Ethereum, and they obviously naturally got more curious about things like DeFi and Bitcoin and all the altcoins, and just the crypto market, greater crypto market in general. So it was very easy for us to kind of do and bring in those crossover content, because it was a need for our community. And we found that, that whole kind of Top Shot class of 2021 needed that as kind of education, and to learn about the other aspects of crypto.
Gotcha. That's cool. I like that. Like an NFT space, like what Brian Armstrong said, that the NFTs were gonna just kind of bring so many more people into crypto, and you just basically gave an evidence of that.
Yeah, and I think as we talk a little bit about Forum 3, it's a great point that I think, one of the things we're doing is going to work kind of right into that point that Brian Armstrong made. I agree. I think that NFTs are going to bring the masses into crypto because they're not as difficult to understand, I guess, as far as like what the value prop or the underlying technology does. And, honestly, NFTs sometimes are more fun too. Just they bring you like all the kind of mix of fun, at least in their current form, all the fun stuff you used to do as a kid, right? Like trading, collectibles, all this,
Yeah.
fun stuff that makes it a little more approachable from a beginner standpoint, I think.
Okay, cool. So like that's probably a good segue into Forum 3. So why don't you tell us about Forum 3 and like how you got that started, and a little bit about, what we should expect from them and what it is.
Yeah, so Forum 3, as I mentioned, that was formed out of me quitting to go to the party and meeting my co-founder, whose name is Adam Brotman. And Adam, if you haven't heard of Adam Brotman, you should definitely take a look into him. He's an amazing dude. He is the former chief digital officer of Starbucks, former president of J. Crew. And, so I was really lucky to meet him that day. And, we started talking about, just like I mentioned, it started as kind of this thesis around play to earn gaming and tokenomics and things like that. And, quickly we kind of dabbled in that space, and then again kind of pivoted to what our strengths were. And so what that meant at the time was working with some smaller brands or individuals and bringing their kind of Web3 presence to life. So it started almost as a little bit of a kind of consulting and agency, I would say, right? So we work with best-selling author Ben Mesrick, and we launched his very cool NFT project. We're working right now with the Boston Globe, which it has been very interesting. And then our big thing that just came out last week that all the details came out on was Starbucks. And Starbucks, they just announced all the details, or some of the details, about what their kind of Web3 loyalty program is going to look like. And so Forum 3 is kind of the lead strategic partner there with Starbucks on that project. So that's kind of where Forum 3 started and where it's going now, into this potential idea of this, what Web3 and NFTs can potentially do for loyalty, right? Customer loyalty. And we think that there's some really interesting things there. And, when we just talked, a couple minutes back, was, well, what does this mass onboarding look like? And it's something like this, right? Where we have a brand like Starbucks that's planting their flag in the ground and saying, yeah, we believe in this technology as a way to enhance one of our key and core business activities. I mean, like, the Starbucks loyalty program is a $12 billion a year app, right? That they are basically making a statement and coming into the Web3 space attached to their loyalty program, which is not a half measure, And so something like that is a potential massive onboarding event for crypto and Web3. And again, it's like potentially this Top Shot style moment where you have all these new users that are going to be interacting with this platform that will get interested just by being here on, like, well, what else is there? How can I get more involved? Or, oh, this idea around this technology is very cool. Let me see what else is out there. And so I think we see it as, especially with Starbucks, is like this idea from Forum 3 side is just this massive opportunity to bring people in and educate on what the space really can be. And, there's a stigma around NFTs to the normies outside of the space, where it's like, they're just flipping expensive JPEGs, which in the current form is true, right? And but I think, Forum 3, and I would say people inside the space really or builders inside the space, I should say, really see this as a technology that can create tons of new utility and digital ownership that's never been able to exist before. So, there's a lot of really interesting things. And one of the biggest questions that we always have to answer is like, well, why does Starbucks need Web3 to do this for their loyalty program? Like, why do they need, like, can't they do this all inside their own database? And the answer is yes, but, right? Like, there's no current way. Here's how I like to describe it, right? What we're solving a business case here, number one, for Starbucks. Two, you've never been able to unlock all of these. If you're Starbucks and you're this massive brand, you're one of the biggest companies in the world, you have all this built up intangible brand value that you can't really do anything with. Starbucks can go and collaborate with any brand, artist, creator in the world, but they have no way to really reward users in a way that has ownership to it. And so that's one thing. It's also a direct business problem that they're solving with their current loyalty program. When you think of loyalty, it's very linear, right? Where it's customers are exchanging incremental visits and incremental spend for more rewards, or in the normal case, just equates to discounts, right? So there's at some point where that is a diminishing return. And so when you think about what I just mentioned about all this intangible brand value and being able to reward users and customers with things that are outside of that, it's really taking that to a next level. And then you think about, well, putting a loyalty program on an open system blockchain where people can then go interact with it, build upon it, program to it. I mean, that's something that's really interesting from a what does this look like in the future, where you could be looking at this giant multiplayer brand game where somebody can come in and say, hey, look, I now have a look inside of all these loyal Starbucks customers, for example. And well, I'm going to trying to grow my business. I'm going to reward them with discounts. I'm going to go reward them with, collaborative efforts and things like that, because you're building this thing out in the open, right? That anybody can come build upon. And so I think when it looks like the future of commerce in Web3 gets really interesting when you think of it like that, and just building these open systems, right? Like right now, if somebody like Target wanted to go and collaborate with Starbucks in a meaningful way on the internet, it's a hassle and a lift, right? Like you can't just go and be interoperable with their systems in terms of, oh, well, how do I go and find out who Starbucks users are? Or how do I go and, make a Starbucks login work on my website? You can't. It's impossible. It's a tech lift that doesn't exist from you just can't do it from a time capacity, from an integration standpoint, right? And everybody's using their own closed systems to do this stuff. But when you think about what building a program like this looks like on blockchain, well, now it's very easy, right? Like all you have to do is set up a wallet connect, right? Where it's reading what's inside somebody's wallet. And so when you think of like what the future looks like in terms of commerce in that way, I think it gets really, really interesting. So that's what Forum 3 is doing, specifically in the lens of consumer brand loyalty, because that's where we have some really interesting expertise and teams behind. And so that's what we're doing over there. I think our goal with not only working with Starbucks, but just in general, is to really create these mass onboarding events, right? Where we're bringing people into the space that we think is the future. So yeah.
So does Forum 3 help with the technical side, or is it just about the community network and bringing the people in? Are you responsible for can you give us?
Yeah, so in the Starbucks lens, we kind of acted like the lead strategic partner, and
Okay.
so we kind of helped design the program, and then as part of that, we connected Starbucks with the appropriate builders, right? So
Gotcha.
we did all of the blockchain interviewing and under their parameters to choose the
Gotcha.
blockchain. We connected them with Gemini Nifty Gateway to do kind of the Web3 building piece of it. But and that's just because they had better chops, right? Like they're the leaders, they're tried and true and tested. And so when you think about what is required from a program that size, you need proven builders, right? So we connected there in the appropriate ways to make those partnerships. So it's actually, this whole program is going to be a big collaborative group effort from Starbucks, from us, from the blockchain, from Nifty Gateway, Gemini, all of that to make it come to life, which is pretty cool.
Nice. So since as we start to wrap it up, I would like to ask you a few questions about the Starbucks stuff, since it's so new, and if whatever you can't answer is totally cool. Something that came up in some of my research about the Starbucks thing is that there's no wallet.
Yeah, I think that might be a small misconception or misinterpretation of what was written, right? So like not on your side, but the publication, right? So the idea is that it's not that there's no wallet, right? It's that there is no need for a decentralized wallet, meaning you don't need to have a MetaMask. So when you log in to this platform, it'll be using your Starbucks rewards login. That will essentially provision you a custodial wallet solution, right? So we are giving a custodial and non-custodial option because of what we talked about, in the sense that there's potentially millions of people that will come and use this platform, because Starbucks rewards program has 27 million daily or monthly active users, right? So when you're talking about people of that size, a group of people that size that have maybe never even heard of or interacted with crypto or any decentralized app. The idea is, again, to make it so easy they don't need to recognize they're using the technology, right? And so, you can go into the whole debate of decentralization versus non, and I agree that it's needs to be, this whole system works on the premise of decentralization. But when you're creating something that's so mass market and onboarding, you need to make it easy for them to use and to graduate into, right? So like the idea is similar with Top Shot. When people use Top Shot, because you had so many people using Top Shot because it was easy to use, the UI UX was great. They didn't necessarily even know need to know they were using crypto, but they could go pull their stuff off. Well, I guess you couldn't really on Flow, but in this case, you'll be able to take your NFTs off to your custodial or your non-custodial wallet where you own the keys. You can use that. You'll be able to use them and take them to, decentralized platforms like OpenSea. But more so, we wanted to give the ability to have a custodial option for people that have never interacted with the blockchain or crypto before. So that is probably, I would say, what you were looking at, because I think the press release does say like, you won't need crypto, you won't need a wallet. Well, that's not totally accurate, because in order to do any of this, you need a wallet. It'll just be a custodial wallet that you won't need to use a decentralized application if you don't want to.
So it's going to be like if you keep your crypto on an exchange, it's basically
Correct.
in their big pool, and then okay. So then they can just pull it out into a wallet, which separates it out of the pool.
Correct.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, cool. Yeah, that was like one of the things that I wasn't sure about. And then I guess the other question that came up was, are you going to access it through the current Starbucks app, or is it going to be a separate application that you have to download on your phone?
Yeah, so it's a great question. The initial build of this will actually be a web app, and it'll be a mobile-friendly web app, so it won't have its own native mobile app to start, just mostly because of time and that it takes to build. Like, we've been working on this project for 6 months, and in order to have its own mobile app built day one is a little infeasible, only from the case that like there's lots of regulations and stuff around what you can even have in a mobile app from a crypto standpoint, right, and wallet standpoint, and things like that. You really don't have great options yet, but the web app allows you to kind of work around those things. That's what you'll see on day one. So it'll be you'll have a desktop web app, a mobile friendly version of the web app. There will be, I'm sure, some things in the main Starbucks app that might lead you there, but it will not be it won't be like integrated into that app on day one, aside from the fact that it will connect your Starbucks rewards login. So meaning there might be journeys or challenges that will require you to do in-store things that use your rewards app. So it'll monitor what your purchases are and integrate that into the web app, right? So
Nice.
That interoperability and integration will be there on day one, but it won't be in the mobile app or in its own app yet on day one, but potentially coming as a fast follow.
Cool. Well, this, I mean, it just in explaining that, I feel like I really got a peek and behind the curtain of what it is that you all do, because there's a lot of these complex things to figure out and strategize for. So I'm glad that we had that opportunity to go through that. Okay, so I think this is great. I mean, I think I'm excited to see what you all doing with dGen and Forum 3. I mean, this Starbucks news is so massive. I expect you to get a lot more business from it and recognition from it. So congratulations on that.
Thank you very much. It's been awesome to work on. It's honestly, I mean, I hope that anybody out there listening to this that may have always wanted to like work in crypto Web3 full time. Hearing my story, I literally, you know, this time 2 years ago was selling adult diapers, and now I'm bringing, you know, helping bring one of the biggest brands in the world into the crypto space. So it just takes some work and conviction, and you know, I would say network and really build out your network of connections. Don't be afraid to reach out to people. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Nobody's a genius here. Everybody starts somewhere. And if anybody's listening to this and has any questions, please feel free to reach out and connect with me. I'm at Bunchu, BUNCHU Bets on Twitter. So at Bunchu Bets. You can also find us at forum3_ on Twitter, and then at dGen Network on Twitter for dGen Network. Definitely reach out, say hi. I'm more than happy to connect with anybody out there that has some questions.
Awesome. Great. Well, I'll put all that in the description below. So if you're listening or watching, definitely check out those links to get access to Joe and all of his projects he's working on. Feel free to reach out. And if you're listening on YouTube, please give us a rate. Please like and subscribe. Leave us a comment. If you're listening on podcasts, please follow us. It helps support the channel. It doesn't cost you anything. And I just want to say again, thank you, Joe, for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it. This was a great time.
All right. Awesome. Well, take care, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.